Welcome to Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar here on STL Sports Central. All content provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Luke Slabaugh, Stefan, Caray on a wonderful Saturday morning. The Cardinals once again defeated on the road. They've lost 4 games on this road trip. All 4 games that they've played, 8-2. The Brewers come out victorious against Andre Palante and the Cardinals. And Luke, before we really dive into the nitty-gritty of this game, the frustrating part isn't necessarily the loss. It's that the Mets keep losing too. The New York Mets have spiraled. There have been opportunities for the Cardinals to make this thing interesting at the end. And unfortunately, they just haven't quite been able to put it together.
They haven't been able to put it together, and Andre Palante and the command lapse there in the third inning last night really dooming them after he gets 6 straight ground ball outs. To your point about the Mets in the wild card race, baseball is a game of probabilities, and when you have to rely on the leapfrog game this late in the season, your fate is in other teams' hands. And so there have been plenty of opportunities to surpass the Reds and the Diamondbacks and make this thing interesting. However, as many people on this chat, our loyal viewers and subscribers have mentioned, the consistency just hasn't been there. And the Cardinals just haven't really been able to take advantage of those lapses that other teams have had. They were outmatched in the Seattle series. I did 2 of those games on this very show, and it was tough to watch. So it's deflating now. 4 games under 500, and with 4 teams to leapfrog, with couple dozen games left in this season, less than that actually. It's a bit deflating, I would say, coming into this Saturday morning.
Yeah, and concerning because of the fact that, again, this is an opportunity for some of these young guys to show what they can do down the stretch. Without Mason Wynn, especially considering that they have shut him down for the rest of the season, I think that's the right choice. He has more than done his job this year. You're in a position now, or have been in a position, where maybe you would have had to make a tough choice. And I think, I'm not saying that this is them mailing it in. I'm not saying that this is them letting go of the cards on the table and just playing to play. But I think if they thought they had a real shot to make the postseason, Mason Wynn would probably still be playing. And if you win a couple more of those games with the Mets losing, you're probably a game and a half out. And I would have to imagine that Mason Wynn would be playing shortstop.
If the Cardinals were on the precipice of making the postseason, or were a above 500, very competitive team, maybe a shot at the NL Central title, the news about Mason Wynn would have never gotten out. He would have never opened his mouth and talked about his knee pain, and it certainly would have been very close to the vest by manager Ali Marmol and the rest of the team. What they're doing right now is a very smart call. You've played 129 valiant games at shortstop. You deserve the gold glove. There is no need to play hero ball this late in the season. When you get mentioned, Stefan, in the same conversation as a Cal Ripken or an Omar Vizquel or an Ozzie Guillen, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. By the same token, I understand there might be some frustration or misgivings with, the Cardinals shutting Wynn down, because actually someone on this channel, I forgot who it was in the comment section, said there's been enough learning this season. This last stretch, you got to learn by winning. You have to end this season hair on fire, healthy, buttoned up, and ready to go for 2026. And healthy is a very key point there. Mason Wynn should not be risking anything on his knee. He should get it cleaned up over the offseason, rest, come back for 2026. And then you throw Thomas to JC in the deep end, acquired for Jordan Montgomery and the Rangers, and you have him play shortstop and have a rotation there on the left side of the infield for the rest of the season, and you put them in a position to fail. And if they come out on top, if they figure it out defensively what to do, if Nolan Gorman can play a solid third base for the rest of the season, maybe you do have some confidence going into 2026 about their versatility on the infield. Until then, this is the right call. Mason Wynn with only 3 errors, frankly, should have been 2. If we want to have a whole side discussion about MLB scores overturning things 2 weeks after a call, which got Mason Wynn his 3rd error, I'm happy to go down that road because I think that's silly with a capital S. But man, yeah, a heck of an effort by Mason Wynn. He's definitely one of, if not the most valuable players on this team, who deserves his flowers for 2025 and poised to have a good 2026.
Yeah, and maybe instead of flowers, it'll be a gold glove. And I think that that's certainly what he is headed toward. Just looking at the other men in contention for that prestigious award. Now, you mentioned something that's important: health. Health is a skill. Health is a talent, and it's something that a couple of the players in the Cardinals core, or at least what we believe to be the Cardinals core, have struggled with quite a bit. Ivan Herrera's been hurt. Nolan Gorman's been hurt. Mason Wynn's been hurt. These are guys that will be essential to Cardinals' success in the future. But if you're having injuries at 23, 24, 25 years old, that doesn't exactly bode well for your career in the future and maybe the evidence that you will be healthy in the future. How concerned are you about not just the guys that I've listed, but the youth with the Cardinals having the injury bug that they've had over the past year or so?
I'm not super concerned. I wouldn't play that up as a huge narrative because when these players first get to the major leagues and endure the grind of a 162 game major league season, there are going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. Culturally, Stefan, I think baseball has shifted to a more safer, restrained type of approach with players. I mentioned Cal Ripken Jr. off the top. We won't see an Iron Man type player ever again. I remember it was news a couple years ago when Whit Merrifield broke his consecutive game streak. I think it was maybe in the 500s or 600s, something like that. And that was considered an accomplishment at the time. It's an accomplishment that Mason Wynn played as many games as he did at shortstop and started all but two of them. So, no, and none of these injuries have been debilitating or chronic to the point that you would put their long-term success in jeopardy. Think of Alec Burleson with the wrist injury that he just came back from, or Brendan Donovan. Donnie, in particular, plays the game a very hard and aggressive way, and that's going to pave the way for some bumps and bruises along the way. But I think, to your point, or at least the way you phrased it, the Cardinals' core, that should certainly be under scrutiny in 2026 by Heim Bloom, just by what pieces make sense long term for the composition of this club. I really like an Alec Burleson in this lineup. He showed some power potential and some versatility around the field. But you throw him in the same lineup as an Ivan Herrera or a Nolan Gorman, guys that are very limited in the positions that they can play. You maybe stick Burley in the corner outfield and maybe Gorman at third base. But sometimes it seems like there's too many cooks there on the corners. So I would reassess maybe the composition of this club and really evaluate who puts you over the top, who strikes fear into the opposing team's pitching staff. So while I do have confidence in these guys, and we certainly have solid players with good potential who have shown some flashes, and Donnie, of course, an all-star, it deserves a second look in the offseason. But I'm to your point, but your question originally, I'm not worried.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good sign, especially to hear from you because we don't know who's going to be on the team in 2026. So that's a very, very fair point that you're making there, Luke. Quick reminder that this show is powered by Graybar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. This is Card Central 365. Luke Slabaugh, Stefan Caray. We are here talking about St. Louis and the Milwaukee Brewers. Last night, 8 runs for the Brewers. Quinn Priester gets his 13th win. Remember, Quinn Priester was one of those weird acquisitions at the beginning of the year, traded with the Boston Red Sox, and he turned out to be a huge, huge hit for the Brewers, who have not seemed to fail, whether it's in free agency, whether it is in claiming people off waivers. When you look at a guy like Andrew Vaughn, and of course through the development of their young players, I mean, organizationally, you can't find much wrong with Milwaukee.
No, you can't. It comes down to solid player development. And if you want an example, watch tonight on national TV on Fox, none other than right-hander Jacob Mizorowski, the Miz, out of the Cardinals' own backyard, Neosho, Missouri, just outside of Springfield, which um, back down there they call it Missouri. I'm pretty sure, having passed through Springfield several times. But the Miz, the earliest or the shortest all-star tenure, 5 starts, and gets named an NL All-Star, has kind of struggled since then. But they picked him out of a junior college. They got Aaron Ashby out of that same place. It's where right-hander Joe Baver went, former Kirkwood alum and a St. Louis Cardinal himself, reliever back in the day. So they're finding these diamonds in the rough. I've made reference to little Caleb Durbin, a 5'7" third baseman who somehow developed pop, started at Division III Washington University in St. Louis, and he's a Chicago guy. Um, the guy who started last night, Quinn Priester from Caray, Illinois, not spelled the same, no relation. But these guys that they're finding and acquiring, they certainly have a great philosophy and method on player development that should be studied. I think some guys are going to get promotions and get lured away from the front office for Milwaukee because they're doing it without any real major acquisitions. I mean, the guys that they got for Corbin Burns a couple years ago are starting to break through. Joey Ortiz last night. Um, there was one other point I wanted to make about this. Oh yeah, I mean Christian Yelich is back to playing at an all-star level, and he was a big acquisition from Miami back in the day. Um, but man, this is a really well-composed team, best record in the majors, and will clinch the playoff berth tonight, assuming that one of Cincinnati or San Francisco loses.
Well, and you wondered how things were going to go, right? When Craig Counsell left Milwaukee to go to Chicago. Well, Pat Murphy has done a tremendous job for the Brewers. Looking at last year, he was the manager of the year. This year, I mean, I don't know if he's going to win it again, but he certainly could be a candidate with that team that, again, you could say Christian Yelich is a star in this league, but they're kind of like the Cardinals where they have young players that just all do the little things very, very well. And they're a lineup that is assembled of players that maybe the national baseball circuit wouldn't be super familiar with. Guys like us who watch it every day, we know who Bryce Terang is. We know who Joey Ortiz is, who Caleb Durbin is, but who Sal Frelick is. The majority of the baseball world probably doesn't, and that's what makes this team so intriguing. And they have just depth at every position. They have good offensive firepower. They can hit for power. They can hit for contact. They can hit for average. And it's going to be fun watching them in the postseason.
Yeah, the only exception that I would take to that is you wish that they would be going up against the Cardinals, what 2011 style or those postseasons of yesteryear, and when those teams were a lot more evenly matched. I remember when it was big news when the Brewers would go out and acquire a CC Sabathia and try to compete with the big players in the National League and try to make an extended postseason run. They haven't in a long time. And in a narrative right now in Major League Baseball, where you get a lot of headlines dominated by the Yankees and the Dodgers and the teams that shell out the big bucks to try to compete, to a lesser extent, the Cubs, the Red Sox sometimes as well. The Brewers are a breath of fresh air. It is bitter to say that, and the taste in my mouth is horrendous saying that, considering that the Cardinals come into this game 4 games under 500. However, credit where credit is due. Pat Murphy did not skip a beat. Like the Brewers did not miss Craig Counsell at all. It certainly plays into a larger narrative of how instrumental the manager is in constructing lineups, organizing, roster decisions and all that. There's certainly they always say that there's a two-way street in conversation there. However, it seems like the Brewers have got that all buttoned up, that they did not miss Craig Counsell when he went down the highway to Chicago.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the current wild card situation. Again, I know this is a Cardinals show, but we can only talk so much about a night like last night. I just find it so fascinating looking at the Mets. 7 losses in a row. They have allowed 3 teams to get within striking range of their chances of making the postseason. Just taking a look right here, the Giants are a half a game back. The Reds are a game and a half back. The Arizona Diamondbacks are 3 games back, and the Cardinals are 4 games back, and they've lost 4 in a row. So let's say the Cardinals win 2 of those last 4 games. That would put them in a position to be 2 games back with, 11 or 12 games left to go? Maybe a little bit more. This is where I think people can be a little bit frustrated, is that the growing pains, the youth of this team is not designed to win, especially against teams like Seattle or Milwaukee, but they've played well enough to kind of stay in the mix. And when people come after Ollie Marmol or people come after other members of the organization, think about it. They have played really bad over the last 2 weeks, and they're still 4 games back. And reasonably, if they played marginally better, they're right there in the mix with the Reds, with the D-backs, with the Giants.
Right, and certainly, Stefan, nothing is impossible at this juncture. It's just the probability of leapfrogging that many teams is there's so many factors to put in there. So it seems low. Uh, I could have a bone to pick with the Major League Baseball schedulers scheduling the Seattle Mariners in the September series against the Cardinals. Maybe I'm a traditionalist in this sense. However, I would really like for September to be backloaded with divisional opponents and not a midnight series with the San Francisco Giants the final week of the season. That's minor. Certainly there's more of a sample size to take into account when you figure out why the Cardinals are so far back, and that dates back to the All-Star break and those situations then. But yeah, I to your point, there are a lot of missed opportunities this season, and it'll go back to the previous offseason and only getting Phil Maton, perhaps not finding a clear direction for this team because on brand, it is directionless here in September. You're 4 games out. You're not horrible, but you're not that great either. And I think the run differential plays a part into that as well. The Cardinals have been outscored by 52 runs. So their expected record per the Pythagorean record or whatever you would call it is 10 games under 500 at a cool 69 and 79. Uh, they are where they are supposed to be.
I agree with your point, and we hope that they can turn it around. Who knows what can happen over the last 2.5 weeks of the year. But first, Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we do officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus. Equally present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. All right, welcome back to Card Central 365, discussing the Brewers and the Cardinals. Last night, one of the positive signs, a couple of hard hit balls from Jordan Walker in a multi-hit game. He hit a ball 114 miles an hour to Joey Ortiz, who made a really nifty play. That would have made it a 3-hit game for Walker. Starting to see him have a solid finish to the year would be a really, really good sign for St. Louis. If he can start to figure it out and carry that into 2026, that is worth more than any win could possibly be, because he is a guy that St. Louis and their fans really need to be a star on this team in the future.
I agree. They need him to be a star, and the expectation should be still very high. He was a very raw talent out of high school when they drafted him out of Decatur High School down there in Georgia. And the one thing that we're just waiting to develop is the power and the pop. I think Cardinals fans would be okay if Walker turned out to be a 250 hitter, but had some extra base power and some pop in that bat. I think there's only 1 home run this year off of a breaking ball, and so that continues to be an interesting narrative to watch. But with a guy with a 6'6", 250 frame, he's only 23 years old. Perhaps we can see a turnaround here. I think we're starting to see the light come on a little bit. Defensively, I'm still not sure where he ends up. I know that originally he was drafted as an infielder and has migrated to the outfield since he was in the upper level of the minors, and so I I think we're still trying to find a place where he can be comfortable and find a place where he can start to succeed. But any little crumb of momentum or evidence that you're putting it together in September, I think bodes well for the offseason.
Yeah, they're putting it together in certain areas. Now in others, there are a lot of things that need to be ironed out. The youth of this team, you have a whole lot of patience for that. But guys like Andre Palante, who have been around, continuing to struggle, his role next year is undefined. And it just has seemed like he has not been able to figure out being a starting pitcher in the second half. We are certainly going to wait and see what happens with the rotation in 2026. I'm excited that they're sort of fast tracking Liam Doyle to Springfield. We talked about that on some of our other shows, he'll get some playoff experience with the Cardinals down in Springfield. But other than him, you have some other guys in the pipeline, but we need strikeout pitchers. And Matthews is more of a pitch to contact guy, and we will see how their roles are shown in 2026. Now, tonight, game number 2 of the series, Sonny Gray versus Jacob Misiorowski. Misiorowski moved up a day for his start. He was initially slated to start tomorrow. So they're getting him in front of the national media on Fox. I'm excited to see what he does because he's had his moments where he's struggled this year for the Brewers.
Yeah, the Miz, it all comes down to the mental game. I remember reading a comment from manager Pat Murphy, and it was one of his first starts after the All-Star break where the game becomes very real, and situationally, sometimes you don't have the composure. Baseball, Stefan, is all about probabilities and momentum, and if you are a step or two out of position sometimes, or you are a little too far ahead in the count, or mentally, jumbled, you're cluttered up there, you can make a mistake that costs you the game or costs you your start. And so, yeah, command has been an issue at times. It doesn't always come up in the walk total. However, Misiorowski is a guy that will rack up a lot of pitches over a 4 or 5 inning sample size. He hasn't, with the exception of his last start, gone to a great length, hasn't gone more than 5 or so innings, 7 innings his last start out. And so there is an opportunity here on national TV to not only not get embarrassed by Milwaukee, but actually put out a statement game against one of their all-star pitchers. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I don't think the Cardinals have to worry about seeing Misiorowski in the well, what I mean to say is I don't think the Cardinals need to worry about not seeing Misiorowski plenty in the next few seasons. So if they can learn how to beat him like they've learned how to beat Paul Skeens, that's 2 very, very important starting pitchers that the Cardinals will be able to defeat. Now, Brant Brown has done a nice job game planning against those high-powered, high-volume strike throwers this season. We'll see how it goes against Misiorowski. But it is a college football Saturday. We are excited to take it all in. We're going to have plenty of coverage for you here on STL Sports Central. Luke, it's always a pleasure. You have any final thoughts about the Cardinals or just about this weekend in general?
Oh, yeah. Sonny Gray coming off what was 5 no-hit innings against the Giants, and then also struggled with this command down there at Busch last weekend. This could be an exciting a game for him, a little pick me up, and I look forward to it. Anytime you can, even the series against against the Brewers, excuse me, the Cardinals could, see some momentum here at the end of the season. That's really what it's all about.
Well, Luke, as always, your analysis is fantastic. I'm excited to work with you again soon. And the Cardinals trying to snap a 4-game losing streak against the Brewers tonight at 7:15 Central Time. Misiorowski versus Sonny Gray. Cardinals 4 games back in the wild card. If they're going to make a push, they need to do it and do it quick. Thanks so much for joining us on Card Central 365. We hope you have a tremendous Saturday enjoying football, baseball, and any other debauchery you guys may get into. For everyone here at STL Sports Central, for Luke Slabaugh, I'm Stefan Caray. We will see you a little bit later on.